Well, hello. Welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip,
And I'm CJ.
and it is Friday in the Rib, and this is a huge Friday after the big decision, the miscarriage of justice. All the losers are celebrating. The hell with the
34,
constant.
34 counts found
Yeah,
guilty.
on a
Can you
on a
imagine
thing that's
standing in that courtroom and hearing each count being called out and saying, and you say guilty, and you say guilty. 34 times you're going to hear that. From
yeah.
what I understand from a reporter this morning on one of the major media outlets, um, she was sitting in the courtroom, and where they put the reporters was behind the defendant and the prosecutor. So they couldn't see the defendant's face. So they couldn't see President Trump's face. And they had monitors at the front of the courtroom, which had one on the prosecutor, one on President Trump, and another on the judge. When the jurors came out, they shut the monitors off. And they said prior to the jurors coming out, to the public who was in the audience, we don't want to hear any noise, no outbursts. And the people were respectful of that. There were no outbursts. Um, but people were, according to what the reporter said, Trump looked at the jury foreman and listened to the first guilty verdict, shook his head, put his head back down, and closed his eyes, and left it that way for the entire uh, reading of the verdict. So that was very interesting. Um, it's a shame that they don't allow um, cameras in the courtroom because it would have been an interesting thing to see on court TV.
No, you're right. Let's see. Let's see. Yeah. Listen. This was it was a dark day. This whole thing has been a dark day for America. It shows how our society in this country has been rotted away and devolved because of exactly other nations. They dumb down the people. They end up using idiots, useful idiots. The rich and elites use the useful idiots, or uh, as a Friedrich Nietzsche once said, there are higher humans, there are the herd, and they use the herd, and the people who use the herd are the slaves. They're the ones who try to cancel everybody out and things, and we're seeing the unraveling. This country was created by people who came from Europe because of political and religious persecution. They were all different religions, but when they got here, they were so happy to have a country and create an area where they could disagree about religion or anything, but still have the right to speak. And our framers of our Constitution created that. But I mean, this case is just a symptom of what happens all over, what's happening all over the world. We look at the the imbeciles that are marching down the street yelling from the river to the sea, don't know what river, don't know what sea, don't know the history, don't know the culture, don't even understand that if they were over there where they're in that area, they would probably murder them because they do not allow people any freedom in these countries. If you are gay, if you are, they throw you off a roof. If you don't wear a veil, they beat you or chop your head off or stone you. And then we have devolved into a society where this is what the left is. They cancel everybody. They call everybody names. In the old days, you could disagree without being disagreeable. They had big fights, and even when we created this country, the Continental Congress was, there were near fist fights all the time. But now they don't argue the merits of anything. They call people names. That's because they don't have any facts. They call you everything, negative, this, they attack you personally, but they never show anything that they've ever accomplished or done. They run around, whether it's Antifa or BLM or now these pro-Palestinian demonstrators, you never hear them discuss merits. They wear masks on their faces. They're only brave when there's a whole bunch of people with them, or they're behind a keyboard hiding in their mommy's basement. Leaders are not afraid to be alone. They don't care if people like them. We do this show. We put out facts. You don't like the facts? Say we were wrong. You want to, but no. They attack us. They attack Trump. They don't like Trump. It doesn't matter. I don't particularly care for a lot of things about Donald Trump. But the fact is, when he ran this country, it was a hell of a lot better than it is now. I don't have to like my plumber. We've said this a million times. But these people they're all brain dead. I'm sorry, they're losers. And if you're not a loser, tell me what you've ever accomplished in your life, except calling somebody names and whining. Just tell me that. What have you done? I know that you were recently attacked. I want to know if that person ever got a PhD, was ever the dean of a nursing college. Pretty decent accomplishment. You don't run around bragging about it, but it's an accomplishment. What have these losers ever accomplished? They're sitting in their mommy's basement calling people names. Argue the facts. What happened to Trump is a travesty. It wasn't even a regular judge. They handpicked him. He's not even in a rotation. And for you morons that just like to call everybody names, keep calling names, but don't ever do any research. The way the system works, there's a pool of judges and they rotate cases among that pool. He's not even in that pool. He was handpicked for 3 different cases that involved Trump or one of his people. Every legal scholar, even CNN and MSNBC, couldn't make heads or tails of what the hell this case was about. This was pure persecution. And I know I'm on a rant, CJ. I'm wrapping it up right now.
You don't have to stop on my account.
But I will tell you something, morons. Leaders don't care. You want to talk to me, stand in front of me. Don't use your keyboard. You want to talk about facts, we'll debate anybody. But don't give me that shit. I don't want to hear it. Because you people are a bunch of losers that hide behind a keyboard or in a mob with a mask on. I'm going to tell you again about Malcolm X. Everybody knows who Malcolm X is. He was a black separatist, part of the black Muslim movement in the 60s. Brilliant debater, brilliant guy, but a radical. Didn't like white people. A separate black nation, wanted blacks to have their own businesses, which that was great idea. He made a great video. If you don't believe it, it's on YouTube. I believe it was 1964, called "The Ballot or Bullets," where he talked about how politicians have screwed over the black people for years and used them and made promises they didn't keep, and how blacks should take care of themselves, develop them, get educated, and great speech. But what happened with Malcolm X was he was a separatist for a long time. Then he went on a pilgrimage to Mecca because he was a Muslim. And when he came back from Mecca, he had an epiphany. He changed. His perspective had changed. He came back and he said, I went to Mecca and I saw blonde-haired, blue-eyed Muslims worshiping alongside of me. And then he realized it's not about color. He became a little bit like Martin Luther King, who said, judge people on the content of their character. not the color of their skin. And you know what they did to him? The black Muslims assassinated him. They shotgunned him during one of his speeches because he believed in it. And that's why I always use one of his quotes. It's my favorite quote. And it applies to what's happening today and these losers that are celebrating the destruction of the American judicial system and fairness for everybody, whether you like them or dislike them. This is what Malcolm X said. I am for the truth, no matter who tells it. And I am for justice, no matter who it's for. And Donald Trump did not get justice. Whether you dislike him or like him, that case will be overturned. This is a political assassination from the get-go. And if you can't see that, call us more names. Talk about body parts. Talk about, what we did. But we did something, loser. We did something. We've got a list of accomplishments that if you had 50 lifetimes, you can get. He's got a PhD. You probably, I don't know. Did you get to the 8th grade? You probably still read on an 8th grade level, no matter how far you got. But this is the thing. Don't attack people. You want to discuss. This is a show about opinions and political things. When we state facts, we have facts. Never seen anybody refute one of our facts, ever. So this is an outrage. This is a turning point in America. In the next election, if these people get in, this country is going the way of when the Roman Empire crumbled and every other empire crumbled. And here's the book I'm reading that talks about it in a historical perspective. The end of everything. How wars descended into annihilations of cultures, going all the way back to the Carthaginians. A wise man once said, America will never be defeated by another nation. America will destroy itself. And he was right. And this is the beginning. And we got one chance to change it. That's November 5th. With that, CJ, back to you.
There's no question about that. And, we've seen a lot of divisiveness in this country over the past 4 years, maybe longer. And the divisiveness is not being cut down. It's not being reduced. It's being expanded. It seems, depending on who you talk to some people, they say the Republicans are doing it. You talk to other people, you say the Democrats are doing it. I say they're both doing it. That's the only place they're bipartisan, is to work on divisiveness. I don't like everything Trump is doing. I don't like everything Trump has done. But I have to give him props in the fact that before Biden, this country financially, for the people, was better off. Inflation wasn't high. Interest rates weren't high. People were able to pay the bills. People were able to vacation. Then we got hit with COVID. And COVID changed the world. COVID changed the world. Why did COVID change the world? Why? Because people saw it as a means to take over the people. They took it as a way to take over the people. They shut down business. They restricted movement. They restricted speech. They restricted programming. They restricted radio, television. Everything was focused on COVID. You notice now that the country and the world can't tolerate that type of seclusion, that all of a sudden COVID isn't that much of a big deal. We still have COVID out there. We got lots of it. But it's still not a big deal because it's not killing as many people, supposedly. It's not, people aren't getting as sick with it. But every time you turn around, every season, it seems, there's a new variant of COVID, and you've got to go out and get vaccinated right away. Meanwhile, the federal government won't even pay for the vaccines anymore. So there's something there. There's a lot of research on those vaccines. Did you notice when they came up with those vaccines, the manufacturers were wiped clean of any liability for what might happen? At least with vaccines like the measles, mumps, rubella, polio, if something happens, you can file a claim because there's a trust fund for those vaccines. There's a trust fund to protect people. And that trust fund has been there for years. COVID vaccine doesn't have that trust fund. Now, I'm not saying that the COVID vaccine doesn't work. I'm not saying that the COVID vaccine works. I got the vaccine at one point. After receiving it a couple of times, I said, I don't need this. This is ridiculous. Nobody was getting sick with it. Nobody was getting sick with it anymore. And those that are getting sick, it's like the flu. It's like the cold, flu. For years, people of the Asian cultures, Japan, China, Korea, they've been wearing masks forever, long before COVID, because there was airborne viruses there always. They've always had them. We've always had them. We just haven't followed up with them as much as we have with COVID. But they used COVID to destroy our economy. They used COVID to destroy our rights. They used COVID to take control of the people. And the people, being sheep, followed suit with that. And that's why we are in the situation we're in. Because again, with Trump and with Biden, people are becoming sheep. They're following. They are not leading. They're not checking the facts. They're not reading. They're not investigating. They're not looking into what's going on. And we've said this over and over again. Don't believe us. Research it yourself. Find out for yourself. Because believe me, if you research it yourself, you can then stand on what you researched and say, this is what it is. And they were right, or I believe they were wrong. But it is what it is.
Well, let me tell you, let's get back to the fact that, well, Alphonse said, high school diploma, street smarts. This is why we tell you, I've long been an advocate of uh, Eastern philosophy because they have a far better perspective on life. The Tao Te Ching, which is written by Lao Tzu, and I have a copy in my bookcase, it means the way of life, said that knowledge is merely the gateway to the house of wisdom. What that fundamentally means is it doesn't matter how much you know. You have to be able to use it for it to be functional. And the least common of senses is common sense. I have known people with GEDs who were far better off than people with PhDs. CJ's got a PhD. You don't hear him crowing it. That's the Democrats. That's what the losers do. I got a PhD. There's a TV show on. I forgot. I don't watch it, but it's on in the afternoon. And every time they sign off, they have to have somebody say, "I'm Doctor So and So," like Dr. Jill. She's not even a doctor. She got a PhD, and we saw it. It looked like a second grader wrote it. I know a few people with PhDs who are really brilliant people. They read that and they were offended by the fact that somebody gave her a PhD. But we know that was political too. But she's got to use that title. They love to talk about it. CJ doesn't announce himself as PhD Ferry every time he comes on. I don't list my credentials either, because it doesn't matter. Everybody deserves justice. That's the bottom line. We get back to what happens here. These politicians, Nietzsche, it goes back 100 years. Herd mentality. The herd does whatever they're told by the slaves, who now listen to the elitists. And this is what they've done. And the way you get away from that is, the CJ said, educate yourself, read, learn. The best education. Look, I went to college on a GI Bill when I came back from the military. And I'm going to tell you, I learned something in college, but I'm going to tell you what, I learned a hell of a lot more in the military. Seeing a lot of this world and a lot of the good and bad things, mostly bad, than I could ever learn in college. All these snowflakes wrap themselves in cotton, and they go out and they chant and they yell, and then when they get arrested they go, "We want pizza! We need bottled water! Oh, it's been 2 hours since we had water!" That's what these losers that are always calling people names, that's what they are. They're people with paper asses. That's what they are. They never did a damn thing in their life. They never crawled down a hallway at 3 o'clock in the morning or watched people with flames licking their ass hanging out windows and say, "Oh, you lived off the city." The 5 guys who I buried in a fire department, I guess, don't matter who died in the line of duty. You freaking loser. How dare you talk about people who go to work every day, regardless if it's for the government or not. If they do an honest day's work for an honest day's wage, they deserve it. It's the losers that get a political job and walk around Durfee High School with their hands in their pocket for 30 years. Those are the people you should be talking about, not people. I took a test for that job, and I took a test for every rank. So I don't want to listen to you. That's why people, we're not here to be liked. I never worried about being liked. I do what I do, and I will suffer the consequences. Whatever people think. People don't like me. People don't like CJ. Well, I don't know. You really think that's true? I don't think so. I ran 14 times for president of the union, and I won every election. I ran for the retirement board. I won every election I ran for the retirement board. That's every single city employee. So I guess a few people do like me, but that's irrelevant. When you have some ethics and you have a moral compass, you fight for what you believe in, and you say what you truly feel. And that's what we do here. We don't ask you to agree. We do this show because we like to do it. And you're always watching our show and commenting. I've never watched yours. So you know what that means? Let me make it simple. So your amoeba brain, actually amoebas don't have brains. I'm actually probably insulting amoebas. But let me say this. What that means is that you don't matter to us. So people who want to talk about, send us things that, oh, they said this. I don't care what they say. I'm sitting in a house I've owned for a very long time that I paid for. I worked my whole life, never collected a welfare check, never collected anything. I've earned everything in my life. Nobody gave me a job, I took a test for it. Nobody gave me a rank, I took a test for it. And before that, I actually worked in private industry. I worked for Raytheon when I got out of the service. And then I worked for the federal government until they closed that base, and then I ended up on a fire department. So, yeah, but I've worked my whole life. I've earned everything, and I made sure all my kids earned everything. None of them got a political job. They both have careers and are well educated. But when they got an education, I impressed upon them the value of common sense and looking at the world through reality. Don't be one of those losers that wraps a mask around themselves and won't talk to the reporters. Don't, I'm not going to give you my name. I'm not going to pull down the mask. No. You know, there's strength in numbers for losers. Leaders are willing to stand alone. And what happened to Trump, I don't care if you're a Democrat. I don't care if you're a Republican. I'm neither. I know that CJ once was a Republican. He probably regrets that.
I do.
Kidding. But I've been an independent my entire life. I have voted for Democrats and I have voted for Republicans. I vote for who I think is the closest thing that will give me and run the government the way I want. And before I wrap it up now, I'll just remind you of what we showed on the other show. This is the truth for you guys that say it's both parties. You're right. Charlie Reese's final column. And then I'll read you just a couple of lines. Politicians are the only people in the world who create problems and then campaign against them. Have you ever wondered if both Democrats and Republicans are against deficits? Why do we have deficits? Have you ever wondered if all politicians are against inflation and high taxes? Why do we have inflation and high taxes? And then he ends it with this. Those 545 human beings spend much of their time and energy convincing you that what they did is not their fault. They cooperate in this common con regardless of party. But they do still work together to con you to stay in office. But the left now has become vicious and they don't believe in equality. What they say is doesn't matter what they say. They can condemn people, they can lie, they can weaponize things against their enemies like a third world country, and it's okay. It's not okay. There was a time when even politicians would not stoop to this. They would do everything they could, lie, cheat, steal, do whatever they wanted to try to get elected. But they would not use the government against their enemies, government entities. And they're doing it now, and it's wrong. And I don't care if you're a Democrat. I will close by reminding you when the ACLU was worth a shit, they went into court to defend the American Nazis Party right to demonstrate against them because the lawyers that litigated that case were mostly Jewish. And they defended the American Nazi Party's right to go out and condemn them and ask for their genocide, long as they don't execute it. That is truly what America stands for. The right to be of freedom of speech, no matter how much you disagree with it. And again, I reiterate what Malcolm X said. I'm for the truth, no matter who tells it, and I'm for justice, no matter who it's for. And what happened yesterday was the worst injustice in this nation's history, and it is appalling. And with that, CJ, back.
Well, I've looked at social media. I've looked at the things people have said about the verdict. I've looked at what people are doing and what they're expecting. I mean, if you remember a few weeks ago, somebody set themselves ablaze in front of the courthouse. They self-emulated to make a point. We make points all the time on this show. And as I've said before, as you've said, Chip, research what we say. In the 13, 14 years we've been on the air, we've made many predictions. We've made many statements. And 99.9% of them have occurred. 99.9% of them we were correct with. When we called out a mayor and told him, we will recall you, it took a couple of times to get the process started. But once the process started, the people spoke. And we said it would happen. And it did. People kept saying, you don't have a snowball's chance in hell of making that happen. But it did. When we've called out the water department under 2 different department heads now, saying exactly where the money was going, saying that there would be raises. And people would turn around and say, well, prices are going up. This is how it's going to be. Da, 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 da. Now the water's going up 24%. 24%. And there's no more stabilization money left in the enterprise account. So there's no way to offset the water or sewer rates, which we knew would happen. And we've said it before. From a very famous man. Keep your head down, keep your mouth shut, everyone will forget about it. I may not be liked. I don't care. I'm not in the world to be liked. Like Chip, I've worked in the private sector. I've worked for the government. I worked for the federal government. I worked in private sector. I worked for state government in another state. I'm proud of my work. I'm proud of what I've done. But again, I don't wear it on my sleeve. If you don't want to believe what we say, that's fine. That's your choice. All we ask is that you research it. If you don't like the way we say it, that's fine. That's your right. We all have opinions. Everyone has one. And they all stink. Doesn't matter.
Well, let me just quickly say, CJ, I'm glad you brought up the recall because you see, therein lies the difference between the people who truly are people who accomplish things in their life and people who don't. The keyboard warriors, the mindless idiots that are demonstrating, yelling. Remember, we said we were going to recall them, and we did. And actually, that was a pretty great accomplishment because it was the first successful recall in the history of this state. With all the other rich people and rich communities that attempted to recall people, nobody's ever successful, and we did that. And we did it because we had the help of people that we didn't. Not everybody agreed that worked on that campaign, but we all agreed that we had to recall the mayor. Therein lies the rub. You see, if you are what the people who call us names rather than deal with real issues is, Flanagan would have never got recalled because you would have spent your entire life on your keyboard calling them names. Because that's what they do. They accomplish nothing. Or as Shakespeare said, they tell tales full of sound and fury that signify nothing, told by an idiot. And if you want to look that one up, moron, it's in Hamlet. And I'm paraphrasing. So, that That's the key. The key is that these people, they sit there with their hot pockets and tell mommy to bring them down another soda, and they call everybody names rather than doing something productive. Listen, Teddy Roosevelt said it best. The credit belongs to the man in the arena, the man who strives valiantly, fails, and tries again. At least we do. What have you done besides sit behind a keyboard and bitch? And unlike you, everything that we've ever gotten, we've earned. Nobody gave me anything in my life. I started working when I was 16. And I worked my whole life. Mommy didn't buy me a car. When I got a driver's license, my father said, I said, Dad, can I borrow the car? He said, my father lived through the Depression. He said, I had to work for that car. You got to learn. You got to work to get things in this life. Go find a job, save some money, and I'll help you get a car. I'll help you out. He said, but you got to get a job. And I walked to the Pleasant supermarket and got a job. And then when I wanted a motorcycle, I got a second job in a mill being a floor boy. That's the way I learned when I grew up. You earn your way in this life. Both of my parents worked their entire lives. They never collected welfare. That's the difference. This society is degenerated. I don't know if you ever saw the movie about James Braddock, the guy who won the heavyweight championship. It was a great movie. I forgot the name of it. True story. James Braddock, in the Depression, they lost everything. His kids didn't have food. They shut off their electricity, and he was a professional boxer. But he had hurt his hand. He couldn't fight. The two things in that movie stood out. The difference in the greatest generation and the losers we have today that want a bottle of water before I dehydrate. James Braddock's son stole something from a meat market. He came home with it. He marched him back to the store, made him give it back, and he told his son, you never steal anything. You've got to go hungry, you find a way to feed yourself. We do not steal. And the other thing that was amazing in that movie, and it was true, is he got a small pittance from the welfare department. And when his hand healed and he became the heavyweight champion of the world, the first thing he did was stand in line and give that welfare department back every single penny that they gave him, because he had pride in himself. And you freaking losers, that's what you are. You never earn anything in your life. Tap on your keyboard, call all the names you want, because frankly, I don't give a shit.
I think you were talking about the Cinderella Man, weren't you?
That's it, Cinderella Man, because that was an amazing story. He beat a champion that had killed somebody in the ring, and he was a much, much bigger, stronger fighter than Max Baer. And
Yeah.
And his wife thought he might be killed in that fight, but it was one of the best movies ever, and it was a true story. Like I said,
Yes.
Braddock. And then what did Braddock do when he retired from boxing? Like I said, like a typical Depression era greatest generation guy, he started a construction company and worked in that construction company in New Jersey till he retired. And that's the difference in people. Today, what do we got? We got these spoiled little college brats going to Harvard and Brown yelling, oh! They don't care if people are getting butchered in the Middle East. They don't know anything about the culture. They don't know anything. And I mean, it's absurd. You look at this, it's disgusting. You got somebody there that doesn't understand that if they went there and did what they were doing here in the streets of the United States, they'd be executed.
I know.
You think you can run around in the streets of Tehran and demonstrate against a government, they'll chop your freaking head off.
That's it. That's it.
But this is it. This country has devolved. But there are good people in this country. There are people who go to work every day. There are people who understand and have a little pride in themselves. And are not looking for a handout or somebody to give them a job. They want to earn their way in this lifetime. Those are the people that got to show up on November 5th. Those are the people that got to show up on our next city election. Because as long as you let the elites run the city, they will use you and abuse you.
I hear you there, Chip. There's no question about it. And I mean, we've got people all talking about when they started working, they've worked all their lives. They still went to school, homework, housework. That's what life was about.
But isn't that great to hear, CJ, real stories of people who actually did something? And now that you mentioned it, I actually didn't start working at 16. I started working full time. But you know what we used to do? Growing up in a Flint, everybody, we weren't rich. Everybody's mother worked in a mill. Everybody's father worked in a mill or worked somewhere else. My father worked construction. My mother worked in a mill. We were out there today. You know what we did? We didn't have any money. They couldn't give us money. We weren't rich. You know what I did? I started working at like 14. You know what we did? They used to bring the truck around. Remember the truck? We used to go to the farm.
Yep, I remember that.
We used to go to the farm and pick stuff and plant stuff. I planted tomatoes, crawling on my hands and knees for 8 hours for like $2 or something an hour, or $1 an hour or something like that. And we used to go on it. They'd pick us up in a truck, take us out to wherever the hell they were planting something, and they'd have all these 14-year-old kids crawling up and down, planting stuff or picking stuff. But that was the difference. But you know something? It didn't kill us. Potatoes, tomatoes, you're right, Albert. It didn't matter. Whatever the hell it was, all we cared, oh no, that's right, it was 50 cents an hour.
There you go.
50, we got $4. Something like that. But it was a work ethic. It was teaching us something. It was teaching us that in this life, you got to earn something. You just can't run your mouth and expect mommy and daddy to take care of you. This is the problem with the country. They've dumbed it down. Everybody thinks they're entitled. And frankly, we've become too rich. That's what happened to Rome. When life gets too easy, people take their government and their rights for granted, and they are going to be taken away at the rate we're going. And Donald Trump, whether you like him or dislike him, did not deserve this. That case will be overturned, but it will be after the election. But I'm going to tell you something. It is a disgrace. It's deplorable. And, you can call me all the names you want. I'm not going to call you any names, except maybe a moron, which you are. But that's actually describing your mental capacity. So it's not. But I do mean it in a derogatory way, because I think you're a piece of crap and a snowflake. And if you don't like that characterization, come and talk to me. Maybe you can debate me and convince me that you're not a moron.
Hey, I've seen you go head to head with somebody from 2 different shows when we were at BCC. And it was actually during the recall. And the 2 of you met in front of a store here in the city, and you aired your dirty laundry with each other, got it out in the open, and that was it. No punches flew, no names were called. It was simply debate and discussion. And after that, it was over and done with, the way it should be. In politics, in life, in city government. That's the way it should be.
Yeah, actually, I got a free burger from Flanagan. Remember, he met us for.
Yes, I do. I remember that.
We had Burger Gate over there or something. But he met some of us for a burger. He wanted to buy me a beer, but I don't drink, so most of the time I very rarely, except on special occasions. So I got a burger and a Coke from him, and I appreciated it. And we disagreed. They called us names during the recall. They said we didn't have a chance. And blah. It was over. We won, they lost. If he won, we would have done what we always do. Keep doing what fighting for what we believe is right. That's the difference. Not just sitting in your house, getting attacking people's, talking about people's body parts and stuff like that. These people are, they're just. I mean, look. Uh, it's pretty bad when you make an amoeba look like they're freaking a rocket scientist. So I'm gonna close with
Well, I think we've beat up enough today of the different subjects, especially the Trump verdict. And I agree with you totally. I think that it was a devastation of justice. And I think that, the people have a right to complain about it. I want to thank you all for watching. And remember, stay safe, stay angry, and hold your politicians accountable. Have a good weekend, and we'll see you on Monday.